Hey everyone, we have a super special show for you this week. Chipper and I are giving you our race report for Odyssey Swimrun Casco Bay 2021 edition.
Dun-na, dun-na, dun-na.
Cue the show music.
Welcome to the Löw Tide Böyz, a Swimrun Podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 84 of the show, coming at you from Studio G, a.k.a. Chipper's Garage. What can we say? We just came back from Odyssey Swimrun.
Wetsuits are still wet.
Casco
Almost.
Bay. And yeah, the race happened on Sunday, August 8th, and we're going to share with you our race report on what was really a great weekend in Portland, Maine.
It was super.
Yeah. So, Chipper, what were your initial thoughts kind of like going into the weekend?
Yeah, obviously a lot of excitement. I think, we had a great time in Austin, and we had trained a little bit more specifically for Swimrun for Austin, and then sort of the training block from Austin to this, we took it up another level or two.
Yeah.
And we were really excited to get out there and kind of see what we can do. And, it has been 9-10 months since we last put any, rubber to the pavement or anything. But, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think, I was actually had some nerves. But
I was very nervous.
But the nerves weren't like, oh, my God, are we going to, finish this thing? The nerves were it's like, all right, we put in, 9-10 months of work. I mean, I put in, all this extra time in the pool just to kind of be able to keep up with you a little bit more in the water to, make that easier for everybody. And I just wanted, I guess my nerves were about something derailing our ability to have a good race, sharks.
Like a shark or something.
But yeah, I think, I was so excited to go there. I think as the week was coming to an end and we were about to fly over, I think we kept texting back and forth being like, okay, stoke level is super high.
Yeah.
So it was really...
And it's the first time that we've been traveling for a while. We left the families at home. And, I mean, let's be honest, this is one of the premier swim runs in the United States.
Yeah, it's the OG U.S. swim run.
Yeah, I mean, Odyssey did a great job. I think they crushed it on this. The course was absolutely spectacular, super authentic to swim run.
Yep.
And it's no joke either. The long course, I mean, both the long and the short are very, very tough races.
Yeah.
But it's,
it's a stout race.
Yeah, it's stout.
It's a stout race. Might be one of the harder races in the U.S. for sure. Getting to the main event was pretty much uneventful. We flew separately, which wasn't ideal, but we hang out all the time anyway, so it wasn't that big of a deal. And just like in Austin, it was really awesome and also surreal to get to meet so many new people, put faces to names from our Strava club and Instagram DMs, reconnect with previous guests of the show and people we've met at previous races. And just like we did for Catalina and for Austin, we did our very best to try to remember everyone that we met so we could do a shout out that we were about to do, but we're obviously sorry if we didn't get everyone. So we're just going to go through this list. You want to kick us off?
Sure. Luke from New Hampshire, who forgot his wetsuit.
Yeah.
And he was able to score an Ark Korp somehow. So we hope that worked out for you, Luke.
Yeah. Lucas, the Renaissance Man, as termed by John Stevens.
Mother and daughter swimrun powerhouse, Brooke and Samantha Fallon. Finally got to meet them.
Finally.
So much chatter on Strava and Instagram between them both. So awesome to see you guys repping the Löw Tide Böyz gears too. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, Grace Moberg, who we met on the dock. Basically, she was just walking by wearing a Löw Tide Böyz hat. So I was like, "Hey, how's it going? Cool hat." And she came from St. Paul to do her first swim run, which is pretty badass.
Yes, and Ben from Arizona, who he walked by as Chris and I were lounging for our was it our pre-race meal?
Yeah, pre-race pizza.
The pizza place, Otto's Pizza.
We're apparently holding court. We didn't even know it.
Yeah.
People just kept coming by.
We were just sitting there eating pizza outside, and he's like, "Are you guys?" We're like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" So Ben from Arizona.
Yeah, Ray Conboy, who we met at Packet Pickup.
Chris Sweet a local maniac, if you will.
Yeah, also Sandrine's partner.
Sandrine's partner, our good friend Sandrine.
Yeah, Ian and Mick from the UK, who we met at the post-race party that we'll talk about later.
And Mick from Australia.
Yeah, who told them about the Löw Tide Böyz, incidentally.
Bless him.
Caleb Beatty, finally met him, powerhouse from North Carolina, part of that whole crew.
And we actually saw him on the course running against, like a salmon against the thingy to drop the paddle.
That's right.
We're like, oh boy, that's never a direction you want to see
Yeah,
someone going.
I mean, thinking about that.
I thought we should have picked it up and just started running because we would have
noticed it and they would have ran back. But it's also like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they could have been like 10 miles down the road. It's like, we're just going to carry someone's paddle. Anyway, where were we?
Scott H. from Boston.
Yeah, Jenny Hinshaw. Hope I get that right. That's Sarah Fergot's race partner.
Chatted with you before race pickup. Yeah. Lisa and Mike from LA, who we met also last year in Catalina.
Yeah, Chris from Tower 26. And at this point, I think I was 2 beers in at the post-race party. So, Chris, feel free to use my testimonial about how much I love Tower 26 any way you want.
Jet and Derek Rosner, who raced with Jet and Nikos, were raced together. Nikos and Derek were originally going to race. Derek had some sliver of wood in his toe, showed all these nice photos to me. It was really quite the experience. And so that's why he couldn't race. So his 18-year-old son, who's headed to University of Virginia, raced with Nikos.
Yeah.
And they had a hell of a time on the long course. Nice job, guys.
Former winner of the Feats of Endurance Award. We have John from the California Swimrun crew. Who's one of the, there's only a few members who haven't met, but we met him, and then his friend Heather from Boston, who was basically giving him a couch to sleep on.
And our youngest fan, Sophie Molesbury, we were able to meet finally.
3 months old.
After hearing her chatter in Gear Talk for many months. Nice to meet you, Sophie.
Yeah, and finally, we have to give a very extra special shout out to Scott Turner. I mean, from Maryland. This guy, we've interacted with him a lot when we knew he was going to be there. Chipper saw him at Packet Pickup. I didn't get to meet him, and I was kind of bummed, but he said he was going to be at the after party. He gave us a gift and thanked us for all the content, which was super nice.
Yeah.
He gave us some honey and some jam from the family's farm. And we were actually really worried that we were going to, that TSA was going to take it. So we had our friend Annie, Sophie's mom. And,
handler.
She's basically going to mail it to us, which was pretty dope. It was like, sweet.
So thanks, Annie, for the save on that. And
super
Scott,
awesome.
Appreciate it, man.
Super awesome, dude.
Glad.
Annie had a great race.
I think he had a great race on the solo short course. Crushed it out there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was so great to meet everyone, and I'm sure we missed a bunch of people. And everyone, we had almost probably like 30 people show up to the post-race, co-hosted, not hosted.
Yeah, some people were calling it like a social. And I was like, I don't know. That sounds like something you would do, like, after church or something.
If you will, maybe.
And also we got to see a lot of former guests of the show and folks that we met at previous events. And there's really too many of those to list, but you know who you are. And we're super happy that we got to chat with you and see you as well. And then I wanted to give an extra shout out because all of the U.S. teams that are going to race the World Championship next month came out to Casco for a final tune-up for, the big dance. And they're all great ambassadors for U.S. swim running, and, we're going to be rooting for you. We've interviewed all of them except for Mel Bartow, who we're going to be rectifying that at some point.
We need to fix that problem.
Just to shout them out, you have Beacon Blake from Team Envol Baywatch.
It be me, and Timothy. That's Jonathan and Tim.
The Swimrun Monks, Sean and Philip.
And California Swimrun, Mel and Andy
Hewitt.
Yeah,
so awesome stuff. So let's talk about... So race day was interesting. This is probably the most interesting race day morning in recent memory because everyone who was racing at 4:06 got an email from Odyssey basically saying that, there was a 11-foot tagged shark sighting that was about 4 miles off from Cushing Island, which is not so near to the first and second swims. So, I'm sure there were some people who were pooping their pants and nervous about that. For me, I don't know. I guess I believe in stats.
Did you have your Adam Skolnick harnessed?
Yeah,
you were harnessing
I was definitely harnessing my Adam Skolnick. It was just like, hey, and I say this all the time. This is sort of my mantra when I'm in open water. It's like, sharks don't want to eat me. I don't taste good. No one's ever been fully devoured by a shark. They take a bite and they're like, this sucks. I don't like this. And they let you go. So also the chances of getting eaten by a shark or whatever, or less than being struck by lightning. So I wasn't super worried about it. I was more concerned of like, oh, what if I roll my ankle, or what if like all these things happen
and you start bleeding in the water?
Yeah, become chum or something. Yeah. Don't want to put any chum out there. But
so we had to swim fast.
Yeah, like we said at the beginning, I think our nerves, if I can speak for you, Chipper, was like, hey, we had all this training. We really want to put together a good race and sort of justify to ourselves that all the training and the coaching and everything we've been trying to do, we were able to actually execute it in a race and have a good day. Which that doesn't always happen. You could get in triathlons, you could be super prepared and get a flat tire on the bike, and there goes your whole day, right?
Yeah.
Similar in Swimrun, things can happen, and yeah. So that's what I was thinking about, was trying to do a good job.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we were as prepped as I feel like we had everything dialed in.
Yeah,
in terms of planning, we went through the course.
We had hieroglyphics on our paddles. We'll talk about that on a future episode. But the ferry ride was cool. It was fun to hang out with people.
It was a short little jaunt over. I kind of liked that. That was a good little start.
Yeah, definitely.
Over there, and it's so nice to see everyone and a little bit of chatter before. But yeah, it was great, and it was kind of fun too, because I was kind of, as I'm sure you did, Chris, giving the relay to the wife about how it went and everything. I'm like, oh, it's so funny. We're all on the boat. We're all dressed in all of our crazy gear, right? And everyone's asking, what is this? What are your shoes are you wearing? Because you rarely get to talk about that with anybody who really gets it. Mm-hmm. And here, there's a concentrated group of like 300 people ready to chat. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, we'll talk about this later as well, but I think that's why the after party was so much fun too, because people actually got to share war stories, which, there just aren't that many people who can like, oh yeah, I totally get what you went through there.
Yeah.
Oh man, your goggles snapped. Oh shit. But anyway, let's go through our race, Chipper. The race started on time. It started with about a 2-mile run on Peaks Island, with a little bit of a bog section. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah. So that came out just a little bit before, at the race start. Lars went on the little bullhorn thing and said, hey, we just were out there scoping it last night, and there was the tide went in, and this little area that's usually, maybe like a couple 2x6s wide.
Like, what do you think it was? 50 yards, 75 yards?
Yeah. It had flooded up, so all these boards that used to be able to kind of like, you can kind of run on them before, but now they were literally just floating in the water.
Yeah.
So you had to do a little bit of navigating through that, which I thought was kind of fun. It added a good element to it.
Yeah.
But it definitely probably threw a monkey wrench. I know teams that didn't make it in the kind of first wave probably had to wait a little bit more on that, because, I mean, it was tricky. And, I mean, I fell deep into one, and you have one leg that's sitting up on a board and one leg that's like up to your mid-thigh.
Yeah.
That's a little bit hard to kind of get out of.
Yeah,
sometimes.
I mean, I actually kind of liked it because, so that first mile, we did it pretty quickly because we sort of had a plan. We weren't going to try to keep up with Keith and the unicorn, or the two unicorns, because we knew they were just going to go off like a bat out of hell. But we were like, hey, we can sort of get ahead of this a little bit. Then, we can find our sort of groove and do our thing, right?
Yeah.
And so that first mile was pretty sporty, but getting that made us like slow down, obviously, because you just couldn't run through that bog. And it kind of helped me, I think, sort of reset and just kind of take it down a notch.
It was a good natural break, because I think if that was a straight 2-miler right into the swim, it would have been spicy pace the whole way there.
Yeah.
But that was a natural kind of stop. Yeah, the mile up, I was already like revved up pretty good.
Yeah.
On that one, and that was and the water also felt very nice.
And I'm kind of known for that too. Like pretty much anytime the race starts, I'm good for 10 seconds per mile, like no problem.
I mean, that's really hard. You have to. That's really hard to overcome.
I know. I try. I mean, even being tethered, it can be tough sometimes. But that run was fun, and then that led into the first swim, which was going from Peaks Island to Cushing's Island, and we talked about it on the gear considerations episode. Like, I decided to wear this vig, and how these things I was going to mitigate, like wear arm sleeves and an extra swim cap. But it was so muggy and hot all weekend that I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go normal.
Yeah.
And then I brought all this stuff with me, which I didn't use.
I mean, you on your person.
I had it on me, which I never took out. But when we got into that swim, that when we weren't dogging in and out.
No.
We just went and did it. As soon as I put my head in the water, I started basically re-examining every decision I've ever made in my life up to that point.
You know, when I jumped in too, because I kind of dove in as well, and I was like, "Ooh,
yeah,
Chris could be in trouble today."
Well, it's funny because I went, "Ooh, I might be in trouble today." But yeah, that swim was, dude, you crushed that swim.
So I don't know what got into me, but Chris and I had this plan before that we knew we couldn't be in the front of the race, but we wanted to see, okay, what if we go a little above? So in all of our training, we've been doing zone 3, zone 3 plus, zone 4, zone 4 plus.
Express our training, basically.
So we're like, okay, let's try to go zone 4 on the run and see who we can be with on the swim. That was basically the goal. And we got there, and there was kind of 2 packs that were already in the water, and then there's this kind of third pack that was entering the water. And we were a little bit. We weren't super tidy on the transition, but we went in there, and they were probably 20
that
yards
first transition,
ahead.
I had to pee.
That's true.
Stuff.
So there was a little bit of a gap, and I was like, okay, let's go. So I started swimming, and for the first time ever, we're like swimming through teams.
Yeah,
which doesn't happen.
I mean, we were swimming in a pack for sure. I mean, there was paddles all over the place.
It was sporty in there.
I was hyper vigilant about no one not crossing swords with the
tether and stuff. Yeah,
it was I mean, from the back. I mean, we had this plan where it's like, all right, we're gonna go a little bit up tempo to try to make some space for us because
there were some shit up
because there were some bottlenecks up the road.
Yeah.
So we're like, hey, if we can get ahead of that, we can. You know, our plan was to kind of make it to the short course ahead of a bunch of those folks when they started, so that we could basically not be stuck behind them on some of the bottlenecks because there'd just be a lot of people. So from the back, and we decided Chipper was going to lead the first couple swims. It was great for me to see because this pack was maybe a couple 100 yards ahead of us. The next thing you know, we're catching them and then we're passing them, and we didn't really see those folks. Again after that.
Yeah, I mean, we all came out, and then we were able to take off there. So that was, I mean, I feel the first 2 legs, I think for our confidence, it felt so. It was really an injection of like, I was like,
and you just reminded me. I remember telling you,
you're like, great swim. I'm like, oh yeah, because this is something that we hadn't experienced, and I know this probably sounds like we're being humble bragging or whatever, but like. It's just not a way that we're used to racing swimrun.
Yeah, especially at the beginning of a race, and I think that just speaks to, I mean, we definitely put in our dues training-wise.
I mean, yeah.
But I remember, but you triggered my memory. I remember telling you, it's like, oh, I'm not nervous anymore. Like after that first run and swim when we were doing the second run.
Yeah, I totally forgot about it.
On Cushing Island, I'm like, okay, I'm good. Let's go. So Cushing Island was fine. Cushing Island to House Island, that swim was also uneventful. We were kind of... At that point, we started kind of jockeying with the second group, I think. The first group was long gone. Yeah. That's like the Dirksons and, Keith and the Unicorn and the Zaddies and those guys. So we were just kind of like yo-yoing back and forth with the second group. House Island, no problem. House Island to Little Diamond. That swim was long, but I don't remember that one being too bad.
Yeah, well, that was the one we got a little bit off course on.
That was the next one. I mean, that was the one to from Cow Island to Long Island. Yeah, we hit the sandbar, which was good.
Yes,
going from Little Diamond to Great.
So that
Great Diamond.
that after that Little Diamond. So this is something that we talked about on the course preview show that really comes into play in this race, especially. But like. And this is why if you can be or try to beat some of these tides being in or out, you can change the race to potentially suit you a little bit better. So what was going to be a 0.8-mile run into a 300 yards or 350-yard swim turned into basically like another 2-mile run. So we had a little bit more run there.
And our one was pretty good. So when we got onto Little Diamond, we actually made some, this yo-yoing we kept doing. We actually made some space for us, and we kind of pulled away a little bit. And I think the low tide gods were with us that morning because it was straight sandbar like the entire way.
You know what? My number was 1387, and my lucky number is 13, and I was born in 87.
Well, there you go.
So I was like, oh, this is a good thing.
Yeah. Wow.
Can't.
Probably shouldn't tell. There's probably some astrological thing to that. Maybe we shouldn't talk about that.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. It's not is it a Libra moon tonight?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. So then from Great Island, from Great Diamond Island to Cow Island, that was a pretty short swim. Cow Island was fun.
You took that one.
I took that one. I, like
Dominated.
a big boy, did that whole swim. From Cow Island.
I actually will say, I think this will be good to chat about a little bit because some teams, people, we talked to the winners, female overall.
Yep.
Team first date, Caroline and Aaron. Caroline led all the swims. Some teams switch back and forth. So this is what Chris and I did, is that some of these bigger swims that we wanted to kind of push the pace on a little bit, I took that. And then on these kind of smaller ones, 200, 300, 400, Chris would just go and just take the whole swim himself, which actually was really nice because my shoulders, those first couple swims,
sure.
That's 2,000 or 3,000 yards, like within a couple hours.
Yeah, and I actually liked our strategy because early on we're like, all right, let's make some space for ourselves. So you're going to lead those swims, and then I'll take the short ones. And I took the sandbar swim, which was like sucker. But then as we got later in the race, the idea was, because of my vision limitations, was I'll either start to swim, or as soon as we can see the exit, then I'll kind of take over and give you a break. And then towards the end, it's kind of like, well, who's got anything left kind of thing was our plan. But from Cow Island to Long Island, now that was a swim that I think
a lot of teams struggle with that one, from what we heard.
And I think, and there were some problems, like you couldn't really see the flag, and then you couldn't see the strobe because there was like a boat that was just anchored, kind of blocking it.
And there were definitely swells in the water too.
Yeah.
So sighting was harder. So I would say that was one of the more challenging.
Ferry went by like when we were going into the water. But that one was challenging, and I think that was the first time where
we picked up some bonus yards.
We definitely picked up bonus yards, but it was the first time so far in that day where things kind of went sideways a little bit.
Yeah.
And I remember I was just telling my wife this last night when I was giving her, the personal race report. Was I remember right after that, you basically looked at me and you're like, it's past it. Let's just move past it. You were just like, okay, turn the page.
Yeah.
Which was good because I could totally see myself having that in my head.
You could have just dwelled on it.
Totally.
You, the royal you. Anybody.
Sure.
Anybody could do
but
this.
Speaking for myself, I know that's the type of stuff. It's like, oh man, we're doing so great, and then we do this one mistake or whatever. But it was a long day. That was, basically 2 hours in at that point or something like that. And it was a perfect thing I needed to hear, to just, all right, just compartmentalize that and let's just keep going.
Yeah, we had went off course, and by the time we kind of realized and found other teams, and my goggles were fogging up, and it was fog, there was a lot of things going on. We looked over, and some of the teams had kind of clawed back position, which was fine. We weren't racing against anyone per se.
Yeah, it was mostly just racing against the clock.
We wanted to race.
Yeah.
And we definitely were. Like, we were mixing out with the Beacon Blake and Baywatch. That was a lot of fun to do that for the majority of the day, like this back and forth and the yo-yoing and, hey, how's it going, and shooting the shit with them when we run by, and they do the same when they would pass us
swim by.
Yeah. And so luckily Blake had those shoes on that I could recognize sticking on the water. Those like zebra shoes.
Yeah, those
perfect.
craft.
Yeah.
So I think Long Island, that's where the short course starts. So for me, the race was basically two races. It was getting to Long Island. And then getting to Big Shebig. Once we got to Big Shebig, we had this big run, and then basically the race
was
swims and
some
pretty much
runs,
over at that point. So I think what you told me really helped me. So we stopped at aid station, and our plan was to spend a lot of time at that first aid station in Long Island, kind of get our what's about us, make sure we take a lot of nutrition. But we actually went through it a little bit quicker. It might have been because we both felt like we wasted some time in that swim.
Probably we felt a little pressed. I think, I know we'll probably get to our, like, what would we want to do better.
Well, I think at that point, too, I was, like, you didn't take a lot of nutrition the first hour, and then I started reminding you after that.
I definitely fell behind on that. I think that is where we actually tried the magic that is these new precision hydration gels.
Yeah, those are pretty good.
So these things just dropped. The first that I've ever seen in the United States, Odyssey has them. And the team at Precision Hydration is these kind of like very much like the Martins or whatever, however you say it, type hydro kind of style gel,
hydrolyzed,
where you don't need to take a big slug of water to drink it down. And it also had some like texture elements to the inside.
Yeah.
It was very
delightful.
Good. It was very good.
Tasted great. Yeah. Anyway,
so I slammed down one of those.
Yeah. I mean, I started basically every aid station. I probably had like 10 half gels. I would just open it, take as much as I could take.
I was probably way too behind.
And then
nutrition.
Drank as much nutrition. I mean, drank as much hydration. Pretty much taking pH, precision hydration, whatever they had.
Yeah. The 500, I think.
As soon as it was out there, I started taking it.
I filled that up as well.
So that run on Long Island, which is just under 2 miles, that gave us a short swim to Vail Island, which didn't disappoint. Vail Island is one of the funnest, also like sketchiest part of the whole race.
So I feel like we did really well on that.
Yeah,
and how much faster did we go? Because our Strava was like, oh, you did this before.
Yeah,
it was 8 minutes or something.
It was like 7 to 8 minutes faster this time than last time, and I think that's just confidence.
Yeah,
I mean the first time. I mean, a lot of when we did it in 2018, a lot of the race was like, "What the hell is going on right now?"
Yeah, so we're like approaching stuff a little bit more, cautiously. I suppose.
Yeah, I think it was smart that we untethered for this one, just in case there was any issues. I don't want to pull anyone down or vice versa.
And I think this is the beauty of Swimrun right here, is on Vail Island, we were up with Tim and Jonathan, me and Timothy. And we were kind of like teaming up.
And I think on Beacon Blake
were there as well. And there was a couple faster short course, like the one in the podium of the short course was coming through. And everyone kind of, Tim would jump down and be like, okay, watch here. This is a loose rock. And everyone's just kind of shouting out the thing. Yep. It's just kind of the teamwork.
It was almost like cycling where the person in the front points out
the branch and the thing or the nail or whatever. Tim helped me jump down a rock and Chris was there and all this stuff. So it was just like, it was great.
Yeah, it was cool. It was definitely like, which is in the spirit of Swimrun, we are all in this together, essentially. Yeah. It's, part of the ethos is like you look after each other. And I think Vail Island is just like a petri dish for that activity, essentially, because it's so wild. So then the swim from Vail Island back to Long Island, which is really the last super long swim of the day. When we did that swim 3 years ago, it seemed like to take infinity. This one actually went by relatively quickly.
I know. I don't know how.
I mean, it really, like my confidence and my sort of like emotions like went through the roof because I was like, oh my God, I can already see the flag.
When we were doing the swim, we got to a place and I'm like, wait, this is where we saw this other team running on the side of this thing. And that must have been the course at that time. I guess we didn't realize that was actually, they were racing the thing. But yeah, I remember before there was a lot of problems seeing the flag, or I don't know. I think we just came at it and better.
Yeah.
We're just more skilled, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that they moved the exit just enough so it was really easy to see the flag, and they put it high
up. And you
kind
of go into this cove, right? And the cove's super slippery with tons of algae and stuff when you're getting out. But, I mean, that was like a fun... I mean, that's a Swimrun exit right there.
Yeah, that was probably the most technical exit, I would say.
Yeah, and the locals were there, like, oh, people have been going to the left and then over here, like, shouting out things. I'm like, thanks, guys, all this stuff. And all the locals were just so great. It was so funny just to see people, like, pop out their golf cart or sit in their camp chair just, like clapping. It's like, it's 8:30 in the morning, and you came out here to do this. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, and coming from California, it's just still super bizarre that you can actually own a little island and just hang out there and like, we'll give you permission to run through our backyard. So then when we got back to Long Island, we essentially run across the island one more time to take basically the last real mega swim of the day. Then from Long Island, we basically swim to Little Chebeague Island, which was a nice, very short run. But then you had the final swim to get to Big Chebeague, and that may have been a sandbar, may not have been a sandbar. Ended up being just really shallow with a pretty ripping current. But I actually think that might have been our best swim of the day in the sense that, we passed several teams on that swim. Some teams were like walking.
I think we took a good line and we just knew what we were going to do. Mm-hmm. And this all comes back to what we say all the time. Have a plan, but then as Chris and I mentioned the night before, also know in your plan that this is going to change.
Right, yeah. Exactly. I mean, you have to have a plan A and plan B and just kind of roll with the punches. Like, the weather could have changed. The sun kept peeking out, and I was worried about you. Like, if that sun came out, then we would just have to spend more time, like, cabbing you down and back up and stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of cabin down, we had planned that as soon as we got to Big Shabig, which was the last major run of the day, which was advertised as 4.25 miles, ended up being more like 5-ish.
More like 5, yeah.
That you were going to cab down pretty much as soon as you got out of the water. So we hit that aid station, cabbed you down, and then...
I actually managed it myself.
Yeah.
And putting it back up, too.
Well, I looked back, and I was like, oh, he already did it. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I remember asking you, like, we're on Shabig, right? And you're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm going to,
do your thing.
Do my thing.
So that, when we got on Shabig, we're about 4 hours in at that point, and I was feeling really good.
I was feeling fine. I knew, though, just how everything was going. I knew I was going to have to get to work.
Yeah.
And I knew on the big run, and this is totally an unspoken thing, but like Chris, obviously his run fitness is much higher than mine. And I'm like, okay, you got to let the big dog hunt sometimes. So we're just like, okay, let's go. And I let him go, and I just shut up and came along with it.
Yeah. And this was where the tether was great, because you didn't have to say anything. Like, if I was going too hard, basically like pull my hip out of alignment or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate you letting me do that. I appreciate you kind of having the courage to go to that space. But that run, I mean, we passed a whole bunch of teams. We didn't really look back. We caught up to teams that were very surprised to see us.
The monks.
Yeah, like we ran that. We even dropped like a 7:20 mile in there at one point.
It felt like it.
So we really, I feel like we really nailed that run. Chipper wasn't communicating too much. He was just kind of like going with it.
I was in the hurt locker, but it was, it was good. It was fun. We were racing, and we were racing hard, and that's what we wanted to do. So I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, we did those 5 miles in like 35 minutes.
The one thing I will say is that I cabbed down, and because I had my buoy and the weight of my wetsuit was kind of like making my bottom sag a little bit, and it was kind of throwing my
interesting.
My stuff out of whack a little bit. And so I was just trying to think about what would be the better.
It's like having like a 1987.
Yeah, it was like I had a big
like Oldsmobile station wagon where the back just like
like a sagging like the headliner. And but yeah, it was. I took before that run. I deployed my Martin's 100.
You did
caffeinated gel, which has 100 milligrams of caffeine. Which I will say, actually, I'm a big coffee person. I took it very easy on the coffee to start the day.
Yeah,
and I feel like that 100
probably needed it.
Yeah, but it ran out at the aid station.
Yeah. Oh, same here. Yeah. So we hit that aid station, and there was a team ahead of us, and we're passing some short course teams, some long course teams, and we see one more team that. And I was just in my mind, it was like, all right, well, let me just try to make up the
right.
It's just like a carrot, right?
Sure.
So we get to the aid station, we run into them. It turns out it's the monks, and they look at us like, "What are you guys doing here?" And I think we were like, "What are you guys doing here?" So we kind of let them go because
out of nowhere, because this whole thing when we ran into him, it was just like, oh, like everyone's surprised. And I look over, and Lars is somehow there with his camera, like, "Oh, we got the Löw Tide Böyz and the monks." I'm like, "What the? How is this happening?" Right now?
It was really weird. And
I gotta see that video.
And I guess Sean, like, he kind of got so out of sorts, he forgot it. He left his paddles on the table. But yeah, that aid station, I think we needed it because it was the last aid station of the day, basically. But it totally killed my momentum as well. Like, kind of like spooling back up was really hard.
Well. Everyone there was hurting because the monks were there, and it's like, oh, if you're trying to be quick, you'd get one sip in your gel, but people were going back for refills. It was like an all you can.
Well, I think people knew it was the last one.
You needed to stock up. It was hot. You're kind of out in this sort of exposed area on the road.
Miles.
You ran 4 miles, pretty hard. And
we were literally just like, oh, let's cross the street because there's shade.
Yeah,
and running on the shady side.
Yeah, totally. And so. Probably I should have taken more energy throughout the day, but that would have been another place. I probably should have had another gel.
Yeah, I think I I think I overcompensated, and pretty much every aid station I was either like sucking down half a gel or
but
one of my gels.
Did your stomach start to turn at all or anything?
No.
So then I think you're good.
I think I was okay, but like maybe I had too much, like I didn't need that much, like so maybe I could have titrated that a little bit better.
Yeah.
But that last mile to get to the penultimate swim, there was this uphill, and that's the point where I looked back because the tether was pretty tight, and you were walking, and I was like, dude, are you okay? He's like, you're like, can I get like
30 seconds?
30 seconds. And it was an uphill. I mean, and I was like, dude, you got it. Like, and I felt like, I didn't want the swarm of monks to think like we were going to try to chase them down or something. Like we're not racing them.
I didn't have that in me. Well, I mean, if you would have said, we need to go, we need to take them down or something.
Yeah, but I mean,
that wasn't our plan. That's not our
plan. Like we're not trying to take anybody down. We're not trying to do anything. We just want to do the best we can do. And for me at that point, like that break mentally was great for me as well, because it was like, all right, let's just like reset.
Yeah.
We basically have like 3 miles left in this experience.
And let's enjoy it a litt bit.
Yeah. It's like,
we still raced hard.
Yeah, we still finished it off, but yeah, I think that break was key, and I think and for the rest of that run, I was just really appreciating that's like, hey, I know that I was putting you into the hurt locker a little bit, and you held out for basically like 4.5 miles or something before
for the advertised distance. I held out.
Yeah, exactly.
The bonus, I didn't have it in me, I guess.
Yeah. Oh man, but yeah, that getting spooled up from that.
And I think maybe a misstep here is about after that aid station, and I was actually taking cues from Sean and Philip, the monks up ahead, when they started putting their cabbing up, which, to be fair, was about the end. We were getting to that advertised distance, and they started cabbing up. So I did too, and then we ended up running probably another 8 to 10 minutes, right?
Yeah, it was a lot. I remember looking back and be like, "Hey, man, time to cab up," and you're like, "Oh, you've already done it."
Yeah,
okay.
But so maybe if I could have held off a little bit more heat, but I was worried about. I didn't want to be sitting in the water trying to get my wetsuit back up and like burning minutes. So I just thought I would get it there. So. But jumping into that next swim felt amazing.
That swim was, it was cold, but it was fantastic. Yeah, and the photographer took this really cool picture of us from like the top.
Yeah.
It was really,
I didn't even know.
Dope. I didn't know there was anyone there.
So this was a really cool swim that you actually went by you cut under these couple docks and dog-legged around this rock. And I couldn't really see where I was going because my goggles the whole day were fogging up. Which, as everybody now knows, I'm a foggy goggle diva.
Yes.
Chris has already bought me a gift from this. 7 SVEN can C anti-fog gel. So I'm going to apply this. It's not toxic, so it won't burn your eyeballs off. It's also odor-free, according to the packaging. But I was super fogged up.
Yeah, and here's a shout out to the safety personnel and boat crews out there.
There was a kayak
because Chipper did the sea lion, popped the head up and what's going on, and there was a guy in a kayak be like, it's right over there, take a left, and and then we were able to see it, straight away.
Yeah, totally.
And then probably my favorite, well,
you actually led that swim off.
I did lead that swim off.
And that's how you were in the front of the picture.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, hey, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So I think I did about maybe half that swim, and then you closed it out. We got on that beach, and it was sort of, you go inland a little bit, then you come out, and it's a little bit of a beach run. And there was these people that were hanging out. And there was this moment where some dude goes to Chipper, who's like, hey, you want a beer? And I'm running, and Chipper's like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, what are you doing? And then, but literally like right after that thought, it was like, what are you doing? And then I'm like, oh, actually, that's really cool content for the show, man. Fucking have at it, Hoss.
Well, we were going by, and they were sitting out, and I'm like, oh, I thought this was the beer aid station. I always like to, run my mouth a little bit. And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. And he held up a Coors, like the mountains are blue.
Like so the banquet beer?
No, sorry, Coors Light, Rocky Mountain Latte. And I said, yeah. Throw it here, bud. And he gave me a good toss, cracked it open, and I hear Chris go, just wait till after the race.
It's like, wait till after
and I'm like, I don't know. And I took a couple big sips of that, and I got to say, that was so fucking good. It was cold. It had a little bit of substance. It had familiarity. It was just super refreshing. And I was like, here you go. And I threw it back to this woman that was sitting there. And they were like, that was the coolest thing ever. All right.
It was great content for the show.
It would have been perfect if there was a photographer there somehow.
Yeah, just
but
like
it's
just
okay.
pouring it over yourself.
Yeah.
So then we do the last swim, and then it's like a half-mile run to the finish, which was very, very arduous.
If you would have looked at the heart rate chart, it just is just going up and to the right.
Yeah, it was. You're just spinning your wheels.
And we saw the monks ahead of us. And I told Chris, I'm like, I'm glad that we're not trying to beat them because I don't know if I have it. Yeah. I don't know if I can like turn up the energy in this sand.
Yeah, I mean,
brutal.
After the race, they're like, "Oh yeah, we thought you guys were going to get us." I'm like, "Dude, we're not racing you. Like we're just trying to survive, just like everyone else." So at the end of the day, I think, we'll talk about our thoughts on this, but the course ended up being a bit longer than average stars, which is, that's what most teams were saying, that the long course was about 25 miles instead of the 21 and change that the map had. But, that swim run, we ended up finishing the race in 5 hours and 10 minutes, which was good enough for 10th place men's teams and 11th overall, which is pretty ridiculous. Incidentally, when we did this in 2018, it took us 6 hours and like 18 minutes.
A little bit of a different course, but similar stats, I would say.
I think So we're obviously super stoked with that result. Chipper said something really funny to me afterwards. He's like, "Well, I guess we can't sneak up on anybody anymore." So I forget what you said, but we're not super funny.
You only have like one time to surprise people.
Like, exactly. Yeah, we're not going to be surprising people anymore. But anyway, it felt good. The finish line was great. Like Lars's dad calling us out was super cool.
And the food, they had so much food, like ice chest full of it was a really great after party hangout on Shabig at the boathouse there.
Yeah, it was great.
It was a really I think that finish line is an improvement for sure.
Yes.
And I think they should try to keep that for sure.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun and a lot of people hanging out. Families with kids,
everyone just talking, sharing how the race, and it was just like it was the exact community that we talk about and that we love so much, and it's all
totally
just there. The voice of Swimrun himself, Mr. Fananger, was able to interview people right after, chat with people. He had everyone's little stats memorized and all this stuff and all these great stories. It was great.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, I think like overall impressions. Chipper, for me, I thought the course was well marked. Locals being out there was great. I think, the Sharks minded their own business, which is good.
Yeah.
That race has to be an incredible challenge to race direct as someone who's kind of on the other side of that curtain.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of people, a lot of effort, and for the most part, I didn't hear about too many people getting lost or anything like that.
No, I don't think there was any. We got turned around at one point
just
a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But this time we didn't. What's that little...
There was one
What's that little trail that has the wooden sign? It's like called the Path or something.
Yeah.
I remember running on that again. I'm like, this is so great.
Yeah,
I was like, I like this little path.
The scary forest. Yeah. But I think overall, the race was a great adventure. What do you think?
Absolutely. And big kudos to Lars and John and Brent and Aaron of the Odyssey team. I thought the whole weekend was so smooth. It was great, transparent with the communications. I know the shark thing probably
Almost
was a
too
huge
transparent.
headache. It was just a great weekend. And
totally,
we ended up getting super lucky.
Oh my God.
To leave.
Yes.
And the Swaggy Zaddies had ordered an extra water taxi.
Yeah, so John Stevens, basically he had the number on his phone for the water taxi.
Water taxi.
So he called one for the Zaddies, and you needed 6 people. So they filled that up real quick. Like Jonathan, basically a lot of the they were looking after the North Carolina people or whatever. So they called us the second one, and we basically had the Cali Swimrun crew. So we had
the California.
Yeah, so we had the California boat, and I have to tell you, it took us about 35 minutes to get from the end of the race back to the to Portland. The best $20, $40 collectively
I was so
that
happy
I've ever
to
spent in my
that amount of
entire
money.
life. I mean, it was fantastic.
And it was fun.
And it was fun.
Hanging out, chatting with the winners of the female competition, Aaron and Caroline, and then the monks and us. And we were just sitting on the boat talking about all sorts of stuff. But it was a great time.
And it's great, like a lot of these people, we've met them from interviewing them on the show, and to see that kind of like transcend the fact that we were just trying to like tell their story and all this stuff. And I mean, I feel like they're friends. And
totally.
I look forward. Same thing with Beak and Blake, and and
Bronwyn
Jonathan,
and Gray,
the Dirksons. I mean, I'm always happy to see the Dirksons, right?
How can you not?
So it's super cool to like feeling like you're part of this community, and that everyone's super stoked to share it. So many new people out there. I mean, we'd have to ask Odyssey like how many people self-identified as this as being their first swim run. But if you look on Instagram, a lot of people are like, this is the craziest thing I've ever done.
Yeah. And then like the whole day, and when we kind of crossed the finish line, or when we were running up to it, it was like, I mean, we did. I think I even said to you, I'm like, we did it. Like we did exactly what we said we wanted to do, and it was crazy. And I mean, the whole day was fun. And I remember it was the second or third leg. I'm like, this is so much fun. I'm like, I'm having a great time.
Exactly. Like once the nerves were gone and we kind of just started getting into the flow of it.
Yeah.
It stopped being like swim 4, run 5.
It was like
5. It was we were swimming.
I honestly didn't even look at the paddles because we had kind of talked about it. It was so ingrained in my head, but it was like, we're just going, and we're going with the flow of it. And that's what
I hadn't realized that I'd memorized the islands, basically, like the order of the islands that we were going to go through.
I probably should have.
But I think final thoughts.
Well, we don't want to forget about the post-race meetup at Löw Tide Brewery.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm speaking for myself this time.
Okay.
I thought this was a great idea to do, just to give a place for people to convene or whatever, but I mean, I knew that there were at least going to be 2 people there, you and me.
Yes, and we had dinner with Sean or the monks, and then Joe and
John and Heather.
John and Heather. Sorry, John, not Joe. So we're like, okay, we know we could at least talk half of this other group in there, and they're like, how many people you could come? I'm like, at least everyone that's here, maybe, and maybe no one else, or maybe 20 people. I don't know.
Yeah.
There ended up being close to 30 folks that showed up between this, and we ended up. I know we were saying, "Oh, we can't hang till 8." We were close. We shut the place down, and it was. I could have stayed there for another 2 hours because just talking to everyone, hearing their stories, and finally being able to meet them.
Yeah.
After, even if it's just one Instagram DM or saying hi in the race, or them saying, "Hey, Löw Tide Böyz" when they're passing us or whatever. Was just so cool.
Yeah, I mean, same here. Like putting faces to some of the names, even just from the Strava Club, because I pretty much kudo everybody, right?
Kudos out left
so,
and right.
like to meet like Derek and Jet and stuff like that was really awesome, and just chat again. Chat with Scott Turner for a while. That was really special, and cool to hear about how he's freaking super stoked on Swimrun.
Yeah.
It's awesome. That was a lot of fun, and I think. I was telling you this before, like what was missing in Swimrun that's sort of not on Facebook or Instagram or whatever was a place for people to come together and actually share the war stories of the day and talk strategy. Oh, what would you have done different and stuff like that? You had super experienced people like
Marcus,
just like dropping knowledge bombs on anyone who would ask him a question. And it was just, it was super cool to see like the different levels of experience, like the Dirksons were there. Annie and Brent showed up.
And Sandrine and Scott were there, and that was really cool. And that's
and then a bunch of new people.
To chat with them.
A bunch of new people that were like, this is their first swim run, and they just wanted to come say hi and like hang out, and it was great. It was great. It was super fun, and I think. We might have to keep doing these.
I think we might have set the bar.
It was a lot of fun. We'll figure out how we can do it on Orcas. But yeah, it was really fun and a great way to kind of cap off the weekend of, I'm just on a real high note.
There is one story we forgot to mention, and this is a new award for us. It is the race. What is it? What were we going to say? A karma award?
What?
So during the race, one of the first or second runs.
Oh, yes.
We hear
yes.
Jonathan's story of it's me, and Timothy.
Yeah, who we just interviewed, episode 83.
Say, just yell out, does anybody have any goggles?
Right.
I can't find my goggles.
Right. So he says that, and we were chatting with
We
him
were behind him,
race.
or we were just in front of him. I don't know
Something
exactly
like
what it
that.
was.
And I distinctly remember Caroline putting an extra pair of goggles.
I remember that too.
In her kit because at Catalina she had the problem. So once you have that problem, you start carrying.
And if you
an
haven't
extra
heard
pair
this episode, the quick recap is during one of the swims, Caroline lost her goggles, broke in half. So she had to do a couple legs with no goggles until someone gave him, which is actually Brent Mulsbury's partner, gave her his goggles. So there was this goggle exchange. Now
it's episode 33.
33.
Listen to that
Thank
one.
you, Chris. And now back to Casco Bay. Story loses his goggles. They dropped them at the aid station. Someone stepped on him inadvertently and broke them. And he goes, Chip, you got any goggles? And I said, you know what? Caroline
who does.
She's right. She's like right behind us, and don't worry, she'll catch up to you pretty quick. So you don't have to worry about waiting up for her. They'll get to you. Don't worry. And sure enough, she had the goggles, and she gave him the extra pair of goggles.
Yeah, because the next time we saw them, I think was like at Vail Island, and then he told us.
Yeah,
that,
and
like,
then as he was passing us, as they
Yeah.
asserted their dominance over us,
Of course.
they blitzed by us.
Of course.
But
I mean, they're going to the World Championships.
they're
Man.
world champions.
They're ready for that.
Yeah,
that was
a great.
that was really good karma, and again, also like a perfect little microcosm showing how swimrun.
Yes.
You know, Caroline. I mean, she's a great human being. I love her. Like, she didn't think about herself. She's like, you don't have goggles? I have an extra pair of goggles. You can have them. I mean, there was no hesitation.
Yeah.
She was like, here, take them. I mean, I love that. I love that.
So great.
Thanks for remembering that, because I think that's
there. I mean, I'm sure we forgot 15 other stories.
I think honestly, like, that's a great final thought. I think that, you know,
show's over.
We love we love swimrun. We're lucky that we're able to go out there and sort of express our fitness, you know, basically, and do everything that we've been doing, working in the pool, doing all this stuff to try to get better and faster, and so we can have a more fun experience, or a different type of fun. But yeah, to be there with everyone and to hear all these amazing stories and see how the community really is a community and everyone's welcome. You only have to pass a vibe check, man.
That's easy to pass.
Got to be super stoked on swimrun, and it was great. And I'm definitely feeling amped.
I'm even more excited. So what's next for the Löw Tide Böyz? We're headed up to the Pacific Northwest to Orcas Island.
Yep.
In September. It's at the end of September. So if you are hearing this and you've got some serious FOMO like Team Adorkable does, we know they were probably suffering with the FOMO this weekend.
Shout out Tristan Amy.
Shout out Tristan Amy. Go sign up for Orcas. I think type in the code LOWTIDE15, see if it works. You could save some money.
Probably still works. Let us know if it doesn't.
And we just dropped the race report, or the course preview for that one. So go check that out. But we're so excited to be racing Orcas, and Odyssey has 4 more races this year. And I got to say, they're already dialed in. They're dialed in on the race number 1. So go out there.
Episode 82 for the course preview.
Thank you. Episode 82 for the Orcas Island course preview. Go sign up for an Odyssey race. Go do a swim run.
Yeah.
And we'll see you out there.
Yeah. Really fun.
Thank you for listening to the Löw Tide Böyz, a Swimrun podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review on iTunes if you're so inclined.
You can also sign up for a newsletter at lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at the Löw Tide Böyz on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, drop us an email at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Writing Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swimrun activities, hobbies, and other bullshit we do.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
And then a run.
And then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then run to the finish line. And just keep going until you're done.
Yes, or
until
run
you
to
cross the finish line.
Or run to the car.
Or run to your car.
Somewhere. Just keep running.
Peace.